Hey guys, remember to like the video and hit subscribe.
Oh, and then back to this event. This debate event I did, dude, right-wingers are, this James Fishback guy is like very much like a all-in Trump supporter. But this event and the league that he hosts and everything, it was so wholesome. It was so cute and nice. And all these kids went up and these guys are like 14 to 18. All of them did a stellar job. They had their arguments prepared. They had to do like live rebuttals. They had to do live cross-examinations. These guys are like, these are miniature people. They're like 15, 14, 16 years old on stage doing this, and they're doing it live and they're being judged. And it's, it was a really cool event. And it was really impressive, especially, I don't want to say given the age, like, oh, you know, they're kids. Like, it was just impressive, period. But it's also really impressive. I just hate that there must be left-wing people that do this, and I'm just not seeing it or something. But these right-wing people are so good at like organizing stuff and doing stuff in the real world. Like, this guy has this whole ass debate league with all these high schoolers from different schools around the state and the country, I think. And it's just and it's not even like an overtly political event, although, you know, they are kind of getting some political input, right? Because he's the leader. I'm not trying to say he's doing this insidiously, but just like by nature of being, or by virtue of being around, you know, a bunch of conservatives or whatever, you're probably going to pick up some other stuff like, yeah. It's so annoying how good right-wing people are at like organizing stuff. And I feel like, I feel like left-wing people don't organize as much, but I have a thing for this. What was the next thing? Okay, I've spoken about two different things recently, and for some reason I hadn't connected these ideas in my mind much, okay? So one thing that I've spoken about is that the right in the United States of America, okay, there is this thing called politics. Wait, real quick, hold on. Somehow I clicked an option on OBS, not on OBS, I don't think. I think it's on Discord to make it put notifications on literally every single thing I have. And I don't know where that came from. Why is it doing this now? I swear to God, I've never touched this option in my life. It's popping up things on like OBS and things on my desk. I don't know why this ever happened. I don't need it. I don't want it. Hold on. Appearance? No. Accessibility? No. Notifications. Enable desktop notifications off. Why is it on, why am I getting like stuff appearing on my OBS? It's not showing up for you guys. It's like part of the settings, game overlay, enable overlay. Is that it? Hold on. Oh, no. Yes. Turn this off. We'd love to learn more. I didn't even ask for this to be on. Why are you giving me a survey? I don't care. No, f you, skip. Delete, disable. Oh, tricky. Okay. I respect it. They, nice. I guess in the last update, they turned this on to force people to use it. Okay, f you. Okay, thank you. Thank God. Jesus. Overlay literally injects itself in every process, actual malware behavior. And it's just like so not helpful. I've never thought like, God, I wish I could just get my random messages to pop up in another program. Ever. Hold on one second. I legit wonder who uses that ever. Well, the way that it works, my guess is the way that it works is if you have it on by default, people just get used to seeing it, and then eventually you've just kind of bred like a new kind of customer behavior as a result of making it opt out instead of opt in, so people get used to seeing it, and then you can slowly add to it over time. Ugh. And by last update, you mean one of the last 12 updates since you last streamed? True! Discord is literally competing with Steam for the most amount of useless updates. Hey, does any plans to upload more from the Israel trip soon? The first part's really interesting. I imagine they're working on it. Whoever they, quote unquote, they are. Okay. So one thing that I've said is the right is very much, okay, politics. The right is very much concerned with politics. So politics is like, in my mind, politics is the acquisition of political power. If you are practicing politics in a democracy, you're trying to get people to vote for your guy, right? You want people to vote for your guy so that you can hold elected office, so that you can enforce whatever policies, you know, you think are right or good or the best for the country, right? And I said that the feeling that I have in the online communities is the left kind of practices something different than politics, where the goal isn't to get people to vote for somebody. They're doing something different. It looks like politics, and they say it's politics, but it's not politics. It's something different. If you want to be really mean about it, then some people on the right, maybe even Richard Hanania said this, that one guy, I think, who did like the coddling of the American mind might talk about this, but the left is practicing kind of like a social signaling, or it's more like a social, like a group thing, where you signal to people that you're part of like this in-group, and you do it with political issues, but that's all you're concerned about, is kind of like protecting your in-group. And one thing that I noticed because my friend who is so original made the 4 millionth joke to me that people have made, where they're like, oh, hey, well, if you know, if your shit gets like super fucked, you can always just do a why I left the left thing and become a Christian and join the right. And then kind of talking about this back and forth, and then this topic comes up of like, why? Like, why are the right so forgiving of everything? Like, why is it that the right can, you know, take people back or not hold people to this like high standard of behavior, whatever, and the left does it? And then I realized, I don't think I've ever had this revelation before. This never clicked to me on stream before, but I realized why, and the answer is really obvious. The answer is because the right is not interested in purity testing. I think I was close before to understand this when I said, well, they do purity tests, but they purity test around voting for the candidate. The reason why the right doesn't purity test is because the goal of the right is to practice politics. All the right wants to do, fundamentally, is win elections. The left does not want to win elections, or at least the far left or the left online people. Their goal is not to win elections. Their goal is something different. I don't know what it is, but their goal is something different. And I realize now, I think that is the answer to when you're wondering, like, why is the right so accepting of people who are coming from the left? You don't see people doing like, why I left the right and why I joined the left, you know, because the left isn't even accepting of those people. Once a Nazi, always a Nazi, or once a, you know, if you supported this guy ever, or you said this 15 years ago, you know, we're never taking it. And it's like, well, why? And I think I understand now. It's because in their mind, the goal, the end goal is some sort of, I don't want to use the word purity because it's overused, but it's some sort of like social group that has to have like a set of beliefs in order for you to belong to it, to feel good about being in that group. And then you reinforce that. And you're like practicing some kind of like basically like a social club, which isn't necessarily bad. Like you can have clubs and you can have groups and you can have popular groups and in-group, out-group preference and all that. That's fine. But when you call it politics, I think that that's really bad because they're not doing politics. And so something that I thought was interesting is something I used to complain about a lot is we're playing by two different sets of rules, and that's untenable. We can't have it so that the right is, you know, in the, I don't even want to say in the dirt, in the mud. They're playing a totally different game than what the left plays when it comes to politics. And I'm talking mainstream left people now, like Democrats or whatever, in terms of being willing to break rules. But then I notice online, there's also, in terms of the alternative media spaces, they're also playing a different game. I think the right plays a morally abhorrent and disgusting game when it comes to how they exercise power. I think they do it in an authoritarian manner, and I think there's no place for it in the United States of America. But when it comes to how they exercise their social power, I think that the right actually exercises social power more effectively than the left does, because they exercise it for political ends and not social whatever ends, or not like, I'm trying to use a bunch of negative letters, but not for like popularity groups and not for just like empty virtue signaling that's not backed up by electoral consequences. Because I keep going back to thinking, I'm like, imagine if you're on the right and you really think that like the 2020 election was rigged. How are you still going out and voting in 2024? Like these motherfuckers, they think that the whole world is against them, but they still show up at the polls and they still actually vote. What the so yeah, that all that to further my idea that I think that we do have to start being, and I already have been, I guess, and I'll continue to be, we need to be really brutal on cutting people out of the left that are not politically oriented in the political sphere. So like if people want to be like activists or like social commentators or whatever online, like people like Hassan, I guess, then they can do that. That's fine. But we shouldn't confuse those people as being members of or representatives of the Democratic Party. And we shouldn't confuse those people as our allies. They're not. And we shouldn't treat those people like they're politically active. They're not. They're doing something fundamentally different. And I'm not saying that thing is bad. There's room in a society for everybody. Well, not everybody, but there's room for like a whole bunch of different types of behavior of activists, of social, you know, movements and groups that aren't necessarily maybe like looking at political ends. Like that's fine. That can exist. But we can't mix that up with like a political mission. How do you do that? I don't actually know. The reality is I'm looking for new factorial mods so I can retire and say fuck all this shit. Because the reality is, and it's depressing, and I don't, and it's also hard because like I have to obviously, I'm being very, it sounds conceited, self-conceited or whatever when I say this, but like you need more people like me who are willing to stand tall on liberal beliefs, but immediately disavow lunatics to the left. And I don't know why, but it just seems like nobody is able to do that. Gavin Newsom kind of did with some of the trans stuff, but even he's like kind of a about it, and when he started to get a ton of pushback, it feels like he was like waffling on it a little bit. But you have to have You have to have, oh, like Ezra Klein is a good example. That's a guy. You have to have somebody who's willing to come out and say, I disagree with Trump on almost everything, but this like socialist is cringe and we need to have real conversations about real policies that are going to make this country a better place. And nobody seems to be willing to do that. I don't know why nobody in the center left is willing to fight to the left ever. It's just so annoying. It's so annoying. But what is their political goal? On the far left, like the online agitator type people, they don't have a political goal because they're not practicing politics. They're doing something different. And I think that's why, like for instance, like look at all the people, the Antifa protesters and the Gaza protesters or whatever for the war. Those people were only protesting basically Democrats and Democratic events and everything. And why? And then shitting on Democrats. But like why? Because you know they're not conservatives. But really, in my mind, it's so funny because people will say like, the leftists are doing what I want us to do. That's the funny thing. When I say leftists, I mean socialist communists. I'll say something like, we need to excise these people from our camp. And then sometimes people will say, we can't afford to do that. We can't lose anybody. Like we need everybody we can get. But then when you look at what they're doing, they're trying to excise us. Like I think one of the big reasons why leftists, why socialists and ultra progressives, why they protest like Democrats almost exclusively is because people know they're not conservatives, but they want you to know that they're definitely not Democrats. They sure as are not the evil liberals, the Democrats. There's something way different. And that separation, the differentiation is incredibly important to them. And I think that's what drives a lot of the protests and stuff, which again, isn't necessarily bad. It's just a different type of thing. It's not the politics that I think we should be practicing, but because it's not politics, they're doing something different, I think. Yeah. What do you think of even non-political people being absorbed into the right, like XQC, who now call CNN libtard media? Well, again, I think that's just because you literally, besides me, actually, I shouldn't say me. The Bulwark people are good. Scott Galloway is good. And Kara Swisher, Ezra Klein, obviously. I think that these people do a good job. And they're getting more popular, which is good. We need more people like that, I think. Wait, did I watch this on stream or did I watch this personally? Did you guys see the argument for why the best cabinet member is RFK? I will take credit for these people being brave enough to do this, okay? Because I attacked the firefighter. Maybe, maybe not. But like, we need more of this.
You go first.
We'll go back. We'll do snake draft. The best cabinet secretary is actually RFK.
JBL.
You be quiet and listen.
I'm the best because you can't hear me. Does it curb your enthusiasm?
Because these people need to get their consequences. You want to stop vaccinating your kids? You want to start drinking raw milk? I'm sitting back with my MMR and all my old man shingles vaccine. Have at it, Cletus.
Okay, I clearly took this exercise far too literally. It didn't occur to me to be like, the one who's gonna kill your children's my favorite, because that's what people deserve.
We just need more people who are brave, okay? We need more brave people, all right? Somebody said the good faith argument is that progressives know they have no chance of influencing conservatives, but have a chance to influence libs and Dems since they're closer politically. No, that's not a good faith argument. Because that's not a real argument. That's a bad faith argument because you're making up excuses for a side that doesn't need them. That's a bad faith argument. That's like saying the steel man of Germany was that Jewish people actually all were secretly trying to destroy the country, and Hitler really had a really strong belief in that. And they did a lot of research, and they really figured that out. That's a bullshit ass. Don't do this thing where you steel man, good faith or whatever stuff that there is. That's not what they think. That's clearly not what they think. And the reason why is this. Let me tell you this, okay? So there are two statements that I'm going to connect. I haven't connected these before, but I got a lot of connections. My brain connected things, okay? So one thing that I've said before is the left will always find a reason not to vote for a candidate, and the right will always find a reason to vote for a candidate, okay? Do you know who says, you want to know a really popular saying in our side of the internet is, I don't want to support the lesser of two evils? You will never, ever, ever hear a conservative say that. If they don't like their candidate, I don't want to support the lesser of two evils, because they are always voting for who they think furthers their interests. So no, the idea that the left only mass protest, the far left only mass protests as Democratic candidates because they want what's best for their movement, and then they don't vote? Bullshit. That's not true, and that's not what they're doing. And when you give that charitable interpretation, you are a Nazi. You're just as bad as them, and you should feel bad for doing that. That's not what they do. That's not what they do. It's just not what they do. Like, yeah, blue no matter who is literally, the leftists use this to attack you. Like, that's a pejorative on the left. And the right use it to attack us. But on the right, you better believe, what, red or dead? Like, they're always voting their candidate. I feel like the consequences doesn't even matter, though. Look at COVID. It's not like anyone looked at the deaths in America compared to other countries and said, maybe Trump was wrong on lockdown or the. I agree with you that these are all problems as well. But I'm always trying to find, like, what is, like, the fundamental problem, or what's, like, the, you know, if you fix this thing, other things will start to fall in line. I think this is a big piece of that puzzle, because we're spending so much time, like, warding off attacks from the left and the right and figuring out, like, where are we? And the feeling I have, and maybe I'm wrong, or I'm not watching the right media, or maybe the rest of the Democrats don't agree. The feeling I have, though, is that the Democratic Party is still kind of wandering and looking for, like, its identity. It doesn't really know who it is yet, the Democratic Party.